blow this up.
Look alive, Bomb Squad. We are back for another episode of Let's Blow This Up. I'm your host, Jason Sircone. It is the co-host collective series here on season 3 of Let's Blow This Up. And as always, I cannot do this alone. I am joined by my friend Traci DeForge on this episode. What's up, Traci?
Hello. I'm starting to get really comfortable in the Let's Blow This Up co-host seat. It's really fun and I'm enjoying it very much.
This whole series and really this whole season has been a joy to produce because I've had a great opportunity to connect with friends and do deep dives. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk to all of those aspiring and even seasoned podcasters out there about the video element and how it can be done without. And if you go back in the archives here on season 3, myself, Simona Costantini, and Anna Xavier dove into the question of whether video was crushing the medium. And I feel like it's a very powerful conversation in our podcast space today because I think there's a lot of people that are wondering what video is going to bring into this or what it has already brought into this. Where is it going? Is it even still a podcast, quote unquote, because it's got this video element? And I'm a believer that podcasting has transcended its original definition and has taken on a whole new life.
Right.
That said, Traci, you and I both go back a ways in the podcast space. So we both got our start doing our podcast without a video element whatsoever.
And, no doubt. And we both we're both radio people too.
And did radio too. Yeah. You way more professionally than me. Me and my little radio show just gives me the ability to say I did radio in college.
Once you have it in your blood, it's always in your blood.
Yeah. So little college campus of University of Pittsburgh at Bradford had me on the airwaves, and they're probably still paying the bills for that move, but nevertheless, I say I got the experience, and it did light the fuse, and it really got things going for me. But yeah, that was not video either, and I don't even think that was a question at that point. That was late 90s.
No, right, absolutely.
Now we're in this world where video has become such the barrier to entry to use video with podcasting, especially with all the digital connections that we have. It makes it a little bit easier, but I know there's still people out there that don't want to focus on it. So let's venture back in time and talk about building a podcast without video like you and I both did. I believe in video. I love it, but I do like those days where it was just a microphone and another person on the other side of the table.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting, just going back to what you're saying about is video crushing podcasting. I think it's like, we could almost, reframe the term crushing it, right? So like, are you do you need video to crush it in podcasting or,
right.
And really look at, is crushing it, meaning is it slamming down the audio, or can you still crush it in terms of scalability with audio podcasting? And the reality is you can absolutely crush it with an audio only podcast. There is no doubt about it. And we are seeing it in real time. I love the idea of like saying going back in time, because yes, when I launched Produce Your Podcast, we're a full service production and audience growth marketing agency. When I launched Produce Your Podcast in 2016, like I've said to you before, I didn't launch Produce Your Video Podcast. I launched Produce Your Podcast. B, video wasn't on my radar at all. I'm a broadcast radio girl. I was so excited about the accessibility factor for people to be able to get into the audio space with a lower barrier of entry. And fast forward 9, almost 10 years now, we are still seeing exponentially 2 times, 4 times, 10 times increase in downloads of audio consumption versus video consumption. And the reality of the situation is, outside of the absolute guerrilla marketing campaign via Google to go video, or go home, audio is still a very strong content creator platform, and it's still very effective, especially for B2B podcasting. And, I am still all in audio. I am still very much believe in the medium, believe in the platform, believe in the space, and see it as having its own place in the space and not getting eliminated in any way. And I think people need to really embrace that and feel positive about it and not feel like it's less than. Like the thing, my big soapbox, Jason, is I don't want people to feel like audio podcast is a redheaded stepchild or second place. Like that is just not a factual statement.
I agree with you 100%. And I'll briefly go back on my timeline. The first client I ever had when I started doing production for others, we were just doing a recording with audio. There was no video element until COVID forced us to pivot, because he was just doing a solo show where he was voicing his expertise. And that was really how he wanted to build that show. But when COVID hit and we were no longer able to connect in person like we had been, we decided to bring in a video element by doing it. We did it through Zoom at that point. I would go back and say you should not use that, but that's what we had at the time.
The recording platforms like StreamYard,
they weren't here
Squadcast, now Descript, Riverside, they weren't accessible then. I mean, talk about a timeline. When we launched Produce Your Podcast in 2016, like I was referencing, we honed a technology out of the UK to do broadcast quality audio recordings that we could have the engineer virtually in the studio with our clients. This was pre-pandemic. This was when we were one of the first full service agencies in the space. We were one of the full service production studios in the space. And we honed that technology out of the UK so that our clients could have a broadcast quality audio recordings, and they could still have the support of a live engineer virtually, so they could record their guests from anywhere in the world. That was, top of the line at the time, very cutting edge. And we didn't evolve into adding video into our client services. We started adding it in. I very specifically remember at the podcast movement in Dallas, which I think was in 2022, meeting with our audio podcast client that attended that conference. We'd been producing them for roughly about 3 years at that point, two to three, going into maybe their third year. And they were an interior design firm. So that's such a visual medium, right? I mean, it's such a visual business, before and afters, palette colors of the year. Let's just say, for the record, they were getting, and still to this day get, amazing success through their audio podcast, even down to the point that on their 100th episode, before video ever became part of their podcast strategy, they had Marlo Thomas on their 100th episode as a guest, because Williams and Sonoma was launching a tabletop line at the time. And they reached out to the interior design firm that we worked with and requested that Marlo be a guest on their 100th, and it just timing worked out for it to be their 100th episode. We are talking all audio all the time. Their sponsorship strategy very specifically focused on audio. They were able to go to vendors that they worked with, Sherwin-Williams, Kohler, different vendors that they worked with over the years that they've been in business, bring in sponsors into their audio podcast. Like, they had all the monetization, all the headliner names. They spoke at industry conferences, like all of this momentum and success that I'm sharing with you was well before 2022, when we sat down at breakfast at Podcast Movement and they said, "Hey, what do you think about us bringing video in?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we'll add it on to your package." That was how I looked at it at the time. We'll add it on to your package. And it was a supplemental addition. And that's how we operated from 2022. And it wasn't until the latter part of 2023, it was like an add-on. And then it was like audio and video packages were reconfigured to include video. And it was 2024 before we really said, okay, we are an audio. In fact, I was just on my LinkedIn last night updating some of our audience growth strategy pieces in our Produce Your Podcast page. And I recognized that we had on there full service audio and video production agency. And I'm like, I think that might be a little outdated now, because people just assume we're audio and video. But I don't know if that went anywhere or said anything, or if that made sense to anybody. But I'm just so incredibly passionate about the power of audio. So incredibly passionate about it, which is probably why you picked me to co-host this episode.
Yeah, that worked out perfectly. No, I mean, I look at audio from the standpoint of, as you said before, it's never going to be the stepchild. It can't be, because audio and video and written content. We consume this stuff depending on the environment we're in. It's timely. If we're in the car, we can't be reading blog posts or watching videos, but we can listen to a podcast, and that audio is going to fill our ears with everything that we need to hear. When we're walking the dog, at the gym, all of these passive activities that we take part in, podcasts can be with us for all of it. That will never be replaced, duplicated, replicated. You have to think about that power, because the other mediums are great, but they can't do it like that.
You are so right. And let's not underestimate the amount of flat out screen fatigue that we all have now. I used to do, when we were doing pre-launch strategy with our clients pre-pandemic, I did all of our strategy sessions over the phone, 100% audio.
Yeah.
Now they're all, every client call, every team meeting, every virtual birthday party. I mean, I don't technically do a lot of those, but what I'm saying is, like, we are on a screen almost all day at work, because remote working, even though it's starting to kind of shift a bit right now. But I mean, we're working remotely. We're connecting via Zoom or Google Meet. We are recording podcasts via Zoom, Google Meet, Riverside, all the broadcast quality platforms. I mean, let's face it, we have screen fatigue. It's a real thing. And it's refreshing to be able to separate yourself from that screen and just be able to relax and listen. And I think, again, we're not seeing it. I mean, spoiler alert, everyone who's listening to this and or watching, we are not seeing the number of listeners of audio podcasts decline. Like, I think more people need to be talking about that. The data is not a reflection of the hype. It's not proportional, because the data is showing that people are still increasing their consumption. Used to be 7 hours a week. Now it's like 8.5 hours a week of audio podcasts. That is not, it's not going backwards, even though, like I said, I truly believe there's a conspiracy theory out there, a guerrilla marketing campaign planted by the owners of YouTube, which is Google, who owns they're the first largest search engine, owned by the second largest search engine.
Right.
I mean, y'all, there's a lot of money at play for video podcasts and brands investing in the video space. Why wouldn't they be pushing video? But there's also a lot of money to be made in the audio space in terms of marketing and monetization too. And that's the piece people aren't talking about, which I hope we get to today, because there's a lot of possibilities there.
I think it's it's great that we're tackling this subject, because there is this mindset or this mentality, and you hear it from people. They're saying it based off of vibes. I'm stealing a line from our friend Megan Shields posted this about how a lot of people make marketing decisions based on vibes, not data. And when it comes to podcasts, I've heard many people say podcast audio is dying because video is taking over. That's not true. When television came into the not even close. When television came into the picture, radio didn't die. It was just a new medium that people started to come and gravitate towards. Audio still played a very powerful role in people's lives, and it continues to do so in podcasting when you factor in video today. I look at it from a business standpoint, where I help clients repurpose content, and we're using podcasting as a means of building marketing assets. I feel video is important because it's just one of those things that gives you the ability to position yourself and your brand in a way that people can find you, learn about you, build trust in you. And that's why I champion having video in play. But I will never, ever say that it's more important or that audio is less important. They're equal in my eyes. I feel they both play an important role, just as I feel taking a transcription from your podcast and turning it into a blog post for the person that wants to consume by reading is as important. It's just as important, because discoverability there's just so many factors in play. But audio will never be slid down the priority list, because there's just too many ways that people consume it and impact. And like you said, Traci, the advertising that could come behind that is still enormous, and there's many podcasts that are proving that today.
Well, and there, what I'm hearing you say is that you just have to meet people where they are.
Exactly.
And if you want to reach people when they're living their lives and not glued to a screen, then you want to meet them through the audio platform, and all the reasons that you were saying in terms of portability and flexibility. And, it is important to, if the budget allows and the energy is there, it is important from a discovery platform perspective and an audience growth perspective to have a presence in video. It's also important to, let's say someone discovers you on your podcast on video, but they prefer to listen to it. They're going to follow and subscribe and use the platform that they're used to listening to podcasts on, which is going to be Apple or Spotify, iHeart, all the others. Sure. And just another thing to frame this, people are talking about, podcasting is still the wild, wild west. Well, I have the unique perspective to have been in the absolute throes of broadcast radio during the time that SiriusXM, that satellite radio was launched, that the iPod was launched. Yes, I am that old. And that everybody that was in broadcast radio at that time was like, people were saying, well, are you worried about satellite radio? They're going to put it in cars. Are you worried about the iPod? It's like, no, because people are going to still listen to radio. And whether people believed it at the time or not, and we're saying, oh, well, satellite's going to take over and radio is going to disappear. Well, guess what? That was like 20 years ago, and the radio is still very viable. You still are getting your local news, sports, and weather. The interesting thing about broadcast radio is that they've embraced the audio version of podcasting because they're taking their shows and making them more accessible on demand because that's the consumption habits. But if you look at it from apples to apples, satellite radio, the iPod did not destroy broadcast radio. YouTube is not going to destroy audio podcasting because people's consumption habits are going to be what they're going to be. And there is enough to go around for everyone, just like there was then, just like there is now.
What do you think fuels that type of conversation? And I believe it's from the minority. I think most people understand that depending on where I'm at, what kind of time I have on my hands, that's going to be what dictates how I consume content. But there is still that small segment out there that believes that audio is dead. Or, there's even some out there that will say that video is dead in some. Again, like they make these very false assumptions and say this is, because I said it, I have a platform to say it, therefore it's truth. But again, what do you think fuels that? What would make a person think on that level?
Well, okay, so where we are as a media landscape right now, there is a lot going on. Pick a topic. Yeah, sure. There's an inflammatory side and a reasonable side. And whichever side you sit on, this is not a political conversation. This is just a factual conversation that there's a lot of clickbait, headlines, inflammatory, drop a grenade in it, let's see what happens type of conversations. Like that's the media landscape of where we are today. And secondly, again, pick a topic, any topic. We're today picking the video topic. Follow the money trail. If you are a full-blown ad agency and you have never worked in podcasting or understand podcasting, or let's say you've never even worked in as an ad agency, as a media buyer, as a producer, as a creator in a big, and I'm talking about the large-scale ad agencies, they never embrace, video is more expensive to produce. Right. Let's just face it. If you're a big ad agency and you can charge your client to produce video over audio is so much more cost effective. This goes back to, again, traditional broadcast radio days. People were allocating big TV budgets because who's making the money? The people who are creating the commercials, the people who are selling the commercials, the people, it's all about follow the money trail. So the audience may have shifted from traditional television to platforms like YouTube, but where are people driving the financial pathway? They're driving it through where they're making the most money. And so audio it was starting to really creep into people's budgets. I mean, we were at a time where ad agencies were just starting to embrace the power of podcasting and how podcasting can shift and change a conversation about a brand, about a life experience, I mean, I've shared with on other podcasts, I'm not sure if I shared on yours, I literally learned about a food allergy that was causing me extensive, painful, horrible migraines. That I had been to doctors, chiropractors, acupuncture, everything to did food elimination diets. Like I had tried so hard to get my migraines under control. I couldn't watch a screen. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything. I had a really bad migraine. I listened to an audio podcast that was a neurologist who was talking about migraines. I learned about this really bizarre, unique food allergy that is annatto, which is a vegetable dye that makes cheese orange. I mean, it is that specific. It literally changed my life.
Wow.
And when I eliminated that, and then when I brought it back in and got incredibly sick from it, I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. Like my whole life, I've been allergic to this very odd vegetable dye called annatto. Where did I learn that? From an audio podcast. So again, this is my soapbox. So I'm very passionate about it, but that is why the conversation has gotten so much momentum and been accelerated so much, is because it's more expensive to produce. The cost per thousand is higher. Brands are more used to being able to check a box in either video or the TV world. And I say we, because I'm like, we were just getting started with the power of audio, the power of brands aligning with audio and the power of audio ads. And it's not been shortcutted, but it has definitely been crushed in conversation, because it's so much easier when you go with what you know, and people know video. So always, people, follow the money trail.
It's a very interesting trail to follow. And I think that when I think about video, like I said, I consume all forms of media. I think of video, especially in podcasting, and we talked about this on the previous episode. And Bomb Squad, if you haven't listened to the episode earlier in the season with me, Simona, and Anna, take that in after Traci and I are done today, because it's a great complement to what we're talking about today. But one of the big things that we talked about was expectations. And with video, it's a little bit more, and this is why I think, especially production companies, editors, people that are used to producing audio that have clients coming to them saying, I'd like to have video now. What does that look like? You have to set the expectation of, I can give you a video element and you'll be able to have this on YouTube and use it for clips and so on and so forth. But if you're expecting some Hollywood level production with all of these effects and B-rolls and transitions and effects across the board, that might be a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. Therefore, you're not going to get what you're thinking. And therefore, it's up to me to tell clients, this is what I can do for you. I'm not a full-blown videographer that makes these, again, Emmy or Oscar winning type videos. I need to set that expectation and say, listen, it depends on what you really want to achieve here. Is it a good audio production? Is it video that it's as a compliment, or is it vice versa? Because that might be a different conversation altogether.
But I think as podcast service professionals, we're responsible for having these conversations to educate people and guide them in the right direction, letting them understand that just because they see a full-blown like 4K camera shoot with beautiful microphones in a beautiful studio, and they want that for their financial planning business or their consultant business or something, like they see that and they think that that's what they need to be successful, without having any idea that that involves an executive producer, a camera operator on site, and then you've got to sync the audio and video files, you've got to do content cuts, you've got to do, like, there's so much involved in that level of a production. And if you're not producing video podcasts, if you're just throwing up a raw video unedited on YouTube, and you're expecting to get the same kind of engagement and the same amount of participation, downloads, views follows and all of that, you're going to come up short and disappointed every single time. And the responsibility lies within the podcast service professionals to educate the podcaster to be able to set them up for success. And that is an area that I think we're not talking about enough, which is one of the reasons why I love that the Podcast Professionals Association is sponsoring your series. Because it is our job to put out the best quality audio and video podcasts that our clients can afford and that we can manage on our own. And there's so many really exceptional audio podcast production companies that aren't skilled in video, but they just felt bullied into adding it on. Producer Podcast included 2 years ago. I mean, I spent 18 months throwing a literal temper tantrum because I felt like I was being like, I know audio, my engineers knew audio. I had broadcast radio professionals as engineers. Like, audio is everything about what we did, and we did exceptionally well. And so then it became, okay, if we want our videos to be in alignment with the exact same quality that our clients are used to receiving on the broadcast quality audio side, then I've got to hire video engineers. I've got to charge prices that include lower thirds and the right kind of transitions and the right kind of cuts, because they need to be able to quality match each other. And I came into it kicking and screaming and having a full-on 5-year-old temper tantrum until finally I had acceptance. But I will tell you, there's a specific client I can mention to you right now, Credit Union Conversations, Mark Ritter, amazing podcaster. He gets, like, his success stories. We've been producing him for over 4 years. He has increased his brand visibility, thought leadership in the space. People meet him at conferences. They have listened to his podcast. They know him. They recognize him. And he, at the end of last year, of 2024, we had a conversation looking at 2025, and he was begrudgingly, his email to me was, I will begrudgingly add video to my strategy. And I just, like, my heart hurt, because I don't want the energy of a client to feel like they're begrudgingly, hello, can I say that again? That they have to do this. And I talked to, and I said, look, I was like, you do not have to do this. There are other options. There's getting booked on other podcasts. You can grow your audience that way. We can place audio ads in other mirrored audiences that will effectively grow your show. Yes. You do not have to do this. And so over the holidays, initially he had said yes, but like I said, begrudgingly, he said yes. I just want to say that so many times so I can mispronounce it every time.
Keyword, begrudgingly.
Exactly. Or resistant. I can say that one without stumbling. The resistance factor was off the charts. January, he sends me an email and he was like, I've thought about it. I do not want to do it. I don't want that layer of complication in my life. I don't want that complication for my guests. Audio is working really, really well for me. I am going to stay with audio. And you know what I did? I was like, yeah, good for you for doing this research, gathering the information, evaluating it, and making the decision that was right for you and right for your business. And it's not the wrong decision. That is, I think, if I could have anyone take anything away from this conversation, is that audio and video is a right or a left. It's not a right or wrong. And that is the mentality of what you need to go into these decisions of evaluate what is best for you, what is best for your business, what is best for your budget, and make a decision to go right or left. But either way, it's not going to be the wrong decision.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I believe, that's a great way to wind us down. And I'll add to that having that video element in your back pocket is good for when you do feel comfortable going down that path versus, like you just said, begrudgingly bringing anything into your world is never going to go well, because your energy levels are going to drop immediately. If you don't believe in it, it's just the same as podcasting. If you don't believe in your message and telling your story through the audio medium, well, then why are you doing this? It's the same thing. And
100%.
Everybody has permission to make their choice. I like to tell people with video, I of course, with what I do, I say, listen, here's how video can work for you. And you want to use those video clips if that's what you're thinking. Like if this is social media content, you don't want to just put audiograms out there because those are pretty much dead. But if you are thinking video isn't for you right now, at least record with that element, but don't use it. Keep it in the archives, keep it in a folder, focus on audio first. And in a lot of ways, that can bring the pressure down, because I think a lot of times it's that camera that makes people think they've got to go into performance mode, and they don't fall into that natural state where they're just telling stories and having a conversation. If it takes just doing audio first to get to that level, by all means, do that. Bring in video later, but get really freaking good at communicating through the microphone and telling stories. And if it's just audio, no one is going to slap your hand for that. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah. And let me tell you something.
When it's right for you.
Starting out in video can make you a lazy podcaster, and here's why. Because you forget that people are still going to listen to the audio version of your video podcast. And if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times, I'll say it 100 times more. You have got to be inclusive with the way that you record a video podcast. If you are talking about something that the listener can't see and you don't bring them into that conversation with a visual reference, then you are going to lose that engagement every single time. And that is something that you will be a better host, you will be a better interviewer, you will be a better quality podcaster if you nail audio, because audio is based on the theater of the mind. And if you leave that very important component out of your conversations, you will alienate your listeners, and they will not come back, and they will not share it. And because it is a very subliminal but very powerful psychological constraint. If you're talking about something that they can't see, they feel it. Just no one likes to feel left out. Everyone likes to feel included. And if you're not including your audio listeners in your conversation, you're going to lose them. And so starting with audio is very smart to get better at what you do. And so there are just so many reasons to start, sustain, and maintain audio as part of your marketing strategy. Just no doubt about it.
1,000%. This has been a great conversation, Traci, as expected. I know, as we've said on a few episodes that you've made a guest appearance on this season, the Podcast Professionals Association is our season 3 sponsor. So let everybody know where they can connect with you and learn more about the PPA.
I would be happy to. So the Podcast Service Professionals, let me say this. The Podcast Professionals Association, and that's the URL, podcastprofessionalsassociation.com, is the industry's only 501c6 nonprofit organization that's dedicated to podcast service professionals, people like you and me who are out there just making a living supporting the ecosystem of podcasters. That's guest booking agencies, PR, freelancers, writers, producers, editors. It's all the people who are fighting for the podcasters every day to make the quality of podcasting better, to make the industry better. Because if we are putting better quality podcasts out into the world and we're supporting the podcasters doing that, then that ripple effect, like people learning food allergies from a migraine podcast, to breast cancer awareness, to getting lifted out of depression from good entertainment podcasts. Podcasts change people's lives when you change the conversation for them. And the Podcast Service Professionals, that is what we do. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you being a member of the Podcast Professionals Association and all of the amazing work that the members are doing in the space. And so, just check out podcastprofessionalsassociation.com. All of our mission, values, all the ways to join, everything is there. And then if you want to continue this conversation with me, because clearly I'll have it with you, I'm at produceyourpodcast.com. And we're, again, a full service production and audience growth marketing agency. And we truly believe in growing an audience through audio. Trust me.
As if the last half hour hasn't proved that.
Yes, exactly.
I'll make sure both those links are in the show notes, Bomb Squad, so you can connect with Traci. Highly recommend you do just that. And until our paths cross again here on season 3, or maybe even a future season of Let's Blow This Up, my name is Jason Sircone, reminding you one last time to stay explosive.